welcome to Riding the Pine. This is our review of Game 56, the final game of the 2020-21 season. Tonight, the Chicago Blackhawks fell in overtime, almost fittingly, to the Dallas Stars by a score of 5-4. But before we get to the review, if you do me a really big favor, hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Also, hit that notifications bell so you will know exactly when we upload our content, as we will come looking for you. You won't have to come looking for us to figure out when we're going to upload, and you will get a ping notification to your device of choice. Also, drop us a comment down below. Let us know what you thought of this season, what you'd like to see going forward. If you agree with anything we say, disagree with anything we say, let us know. We'd love to engage with you down below. And with that, Chai sports fan Joe is here with me. Joe, the season is officially over, and I think it was a pretty fitting end, to be honest. Um, kind of up and down, like we've seen all season. A lot of hope, and then just kind of puttered out at the end.
Yeah, I think it was, tonight, you had a 4-2 lead in the third period and a couple of just bad plays, on the defensive side. And, like I said, and I know they mentioned it on the broadcast tonight that, defensively and, offensively, it really wasn't there this year. And, scoring consistently. I mean, we had a couple good stretches, but I think when we got into that month of March where we had that murderers row kind of in essence of games against the top teams in the division, they really exposed, what kind of team the Hawks were. And that was just kind of meddling around the middle of the pack. But, I think going back to when we started the season, I think the Hawks definitely exceeded most, if not all, fans' expectations, because I know, at least with me and you, I know we had talked about, hey, they might be lucky to win 10 or 15, between 10 to 15 games. And they ended up winning 24. So, I mean, for what they were, I take the season as, definitely one that exceeded expectations during this quote unquote rebuild.
Yeah, I think I saw some people that are kind of they're saying they were disappointed on Twitter. I don't know how. Um, this was, by all intents and purposes, a win. I think for Jeremy Colleton, it was a win. I think it was a win for Stan Bowman. And it was a win for the direction of the Blackhawks. You know, a lot of shit went wrong this year. Uh, and at the worst times, right? We came in and Jonathan Taves in December was announced that he was going to be out for an extended period. Didn't say if it was for the season or not, just said an extended period. Kirby Doc, was it late December, broke his wrist, maybe early January, about a week or two before the season started in the World Juniors. And then Alex Nylander at the end of December, I'm pretty sure he was at the end of this December, was announced that he was having knee surgery. So three of your top six forwards right there were immediately removed from the equation. Um, Obviously, everybody was upset. Corey Crawford was not brought back. I actually was fine with it. I'm glad, and I think most fans now will admit that was probably a wise choice. But that was going on as well. And pretty much everybody picked the Hawks to be 28th to 31st in the league. And they're going to finish about 22nd, 21st. We still have to wait and see. Uh, Calgary still has 4 games to play against Vancouver. It is entirely possible that Calgary could leapfrog the Hawks if they win out on those games. So, draft positioning, the Hawks are looking like they're going to be somewhere between 13th and 11th. They currently sit at 12. So the worst they could do right now is 13th. Best is 11th, unless they win the lottery, which, again, if you watched, I believe it was the pregame on NBC Sports, They have a 2% shot at the number one overall pick and a 2.2% shot at the second overall pick. So, possibility, as unlikely as it is, still should have a pretty decent shot at a good player. This draft is going to be all over the place just because of COVID, not having the opportunity to really scout some of these players. So it'll be very interesting to see how the draft shakes out. But yeah, all in all, I think if you're a Blackhawks fan, you have to be pretty happy with how this season went. We have a number one goalie now. There's no question about that. We have a really nice player in Brandon Hagel. I know um, when we were talking about at the beginning with me and Josh from On Tap that you know Hagel wasn't going to be a player and proved us wrong. Is on pace for probably about a 45 to 50 point season. If he can continue that into next season, that's going to be huge. Alex DeBrincat. I mean, what a season Alex DeBrincat had. 32 goals, I believe 56 points is what he finished with. MVP like season. I think definitely overtook Kane for that moniker at the end of the season or the second half anyway. Um, Wyatt Kalynuk, huge emergence there. Riley Stillman, who we got in a trade, huge emergence there. Um, Pius Suter proved he could play. He was capable. Kurashev played okay. I think he's probably going to end up back in Rockford next season, and that's not a knock on him. I think that's just the amount of depth coming in. Defensively too. I mean, Mitchell. Uh, Probably thought we were going to get a little bit more from Mitchell than we got, but I wouldn't say he was horrible. Um, Bodan looked serviceable as well. So, I think pretty much everything we saw this year was a win. The only thing that I think you could maybe be disappointed with is Adam Boquist. I mean, injuries to him again. He spent time on the COVID list as well. And, concussions and then breaking his wrist. And when he did play and was healthy, didn't still didn't look like he had taken that step yet. But other than him, I can't really think of anything that would be really viewed as a negative. Can you, Joe? I mean, what?
No, I mean, yeah, like I said, it's we wanted to see strides from some of the players, and like I said, Hagel definitely provided the spark that I think we wanted to see in some of these guys, and yeah, I think the most disappointing I think has to be Boquist, and again, I don't know if it's was he rushed, to come up here,
I,
is that
I
affecting
think
his
so.
play?
I think that's part of it. I think he should have been in Rockford. And this just escaped me, but I think we can probably throw Dylan Strome in there as well as being a disappointment this
Yeah,
season.
so um but like you said, now it's we focus in on the off season, and this is another year that goes by with with Taves and Kane not getting into the postseason, and you have a superstar now, it seems, with DeBrincat, and hopefully now with, like you said, we get a healthy Jonathan Taves back, we get a healthy Kirby Doc, we get a healthy Alex Nylander, but we got to obviously hope the kind of the pieces of those puzzles connect a little bit, and they can form some chemistry and put up some scoring. But and I think it was kind of funny because I think it was Charlie Remuliotis tweeted how kind of the roles were reversed last year to this year, on the Hawks power play and penalty kill, because where last year the power play wasn't good, but this year it actually improved. And last year the penalty kill was pretty good, but this year it definitely regressed. So because I think what did the Hawks finish 28th, I think, as far as their penalty kill percentage.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
So those are areas that we have to improve on, and and like we had talked about, Kyle, these defensive breakdowns sometimes where guys are getting caught below the goal line, and the front of the net is, being left vacated, or just a number of different things. But hopefully, like I
Well, I
said,
mean, like we saw tonight, right? Like on the goal at the end of the second period, right? I don't remember who scored it, but was it Robertson maybe? But Suter took the wrong man, got lost in coverage, and like Foley had even said it. Eddie had called it 5 seconds before the puck was dropped. But it's just stuff like that. It's like I think that's more of a coaching issue than it is personnel. I know a lot of people, and even the guys, Conroy on the post game, are kind of going at that the Hawks need to bring in more defensemen, which I vehemently disagree with. I think that would be the worst decision they could make, to be quite honest, on the whole roster, would be to add defensemen. But I think the system's not working. And like I talked about it with Joe before we jumped on here. How many times this season, whether like it's there in the second period where they give up a goal in the final minute of a period or at the very beginning of a period, or again in this game, they give up 2 goals in 2 minutes or 2 goals in a minute and 20 seconds, something like that. And, last night, Hagel scored immediately. Like there was a quick response to Dallas scoring. That's something else that we haven't seen. They seem to not be able to get that response back. Obviously tonight they were able to keep extending their 2-goal lead, and then they gave up the 2 goals in the 2 minutes. That to me, that's like part of it's mental, yeah, but it's also overthinking. Like the players don't know what they don't know what they're doing. They don't know who they're supposed to cover. They don't know, like where they're supposed to be on the ice. And that's another thing with like evaluating your defense. Like if the system doesn't work, like the Hawks are one of the only teams that play this like 2.5 defensive like player. Like it's like man and a half. And everybody else is like man to man, basically. Like Nashville, they suffocate the hell out of us and they play man to man. Why aren't we playing that? And it's just I don't know. I was telling Joe, and I know a lot of people probably are against the Hawks bringing in somebody like a John Tortorella. But I think if you could bring somebody, and it doesn't have to be Torts, it can be anybody, but if Paul McLean would be great, especially for the special teams, because he's a special teams guru, more so power play. But just to bring in somebody to kind of like as an advisor that has been a coach that can kind of put the pressure on Colleton, but also figure out how to get this team to where it needs to be. Because, you know, I think we probably all agree Colleton's not the guy to get this team to where it needs to go. The question is just how much longer we're going to put up with this.
Well, right now this is the third,
This is his third year, yeah.
right, and this is our third season and out of four, not making the postseason, and really should be four. I mean, obviously, thanks to the pause, last year, and it's really the only reason we got in. But we're it's kind of like, and I feel like a lot of Hawks fans are right when they say, "What is the direction of this team right now? Where are they going? What do they want to do? What is their goal to accomplish?" I kind of feel like we feel like we're kind of stuck in purgatory. Like there's no, what is the plan? Where do we want to be? You next season, the season after. Do you want to be competitive? Do you want to continue to rebuild? Do you want to let these young guys continue to get experience? What is kind of the direction? And I don't know if maybe we'll find out more when Bowman and them have their end of the year press conference. But
Well, I
I don't
think
know.
part of that too, I think, and I agree with you. I think they need a direction, or they need to be more clear of what their direction is. And obviously they have heard that criticism. That's why Stan Bowman has been much more out there in the podcasts and in the media of what they're doing, where they're going. But I think more so than him, it needs to be Colleton. Colleton's the general. He's the coach. He's the field general out there. Why he I don't know. Like he's just not the guy to me. He's not the leader that they need. They need to me a veteran coach who can come in and really I think Bruce Boudreaux would be fantastic for this team. I really do. And he's a former Blackhawk, and he's never won. And what an opportunity, because it would be probably last opportunity he gets to coach. And he's like one of the winningest coaches all time in the league in the regular season. Now, he needs to get over the hump, obviously, and that'll be the huge knock on him if they brought him in. But I think offensively and even defensively, look at that Ducks team that the Hawks took out in 2015. That was a Bruce Boudreaux team. They were hard as hell to play against. And to me, that's what this team needs to become. They were talking about tonight, and Conroy was talking about this. This is why he was bringing up the defense. What's the difference between us and Tampa, us and Carolina? Well, it's the big defenseman. No. I mean, maybe the players are bigger, yes, and they're bigger, they play heavier. That with Vegas last year, yes, that's a part of it. But like your defense, they even mentioned it. Your bottom third of the league, and your offense is bottom third of the league. Now your defense is full of rookies. You had what, 4 rookies in the lineup tonight? 5 on defense. I mean, I guess Stillman's not a rookie, but he's still a young defenseman. So, other than Murphy and Zadorov and Stillman, yeah, you had at least 4 straight rookies. And Regula, this was only his 3rd game. So I don't know where all this crapping on the defense is coming from. Like, these guys are going to make mistakes. You want them to make mistakes now, not when you get to the playoffs. And, that's why one reason I've advocated that they need to move on from Zadorov, because they need these kids to play and they need to figure out who should go. And the only way you're going to do that is to play him. Look at Gustav Forsling. He's the perfect example. That guy was given up on by Vancouver. He was given up on by Chicago. And then he was given up on by Carolina. Now he's in Florida and he's playing 22, 23 minutes a game in a top 4 role for Quenneville. That's a guy that we didn't have a spot for. We traded for Calvin DeHaan. And Carolina didn't see any value in him either. So that's like my point. And Forsling's not that old. He's only like 25. So we've got to take the time to see what we have. We can't just be getting rid of guys to get rid of guys, or to bring in guys because we're not willing. And this goes to what you're saying, Joe, about a direction. Why are we going to bring in a 6'2", 6'3" defenseman? Like, that's what Conroy said they need to do. They need to go out and get one of these guys. But then in the same breath, he says, well, let's get rid of Zadorov, who's 6'6", 6'7". Huh? Didn't you just say we needed a 6'2", 6'3" defender? Now you want to get rid of our 6'6" defender? What?
Well, maybe, or just referring to a defenseman that is a little more agile, a little more mobile,
Well,
versus,
probably. But
you know, but
the point I'm making here, though, is that aside from that, uh, I think, and maybe it's Pat, and by Pat I mean Pat Boyle and Conrad. I don't know, but and even Jamal, like Jamal last year wanted to give Corey Crawford $5 million. Thank God that didn't happen. But it's like they want to do a stopgap. Like there's a hole in this team, and we got to put a stopgap in it to keep it from leaking, to keep us competitive. You're not competitive. You're not. You're in the bottom half of the league in defense and scoring. That's not competitive. The only fucking reason you are where you are is because of Kevin Lankinen and the Vezina worthy numbers that he was putting up in late January and all of February. That's what got you here. And then obviously the wheels just fell off because whether you want to say he got tired or the competition got stiffer or, Patrick Kane disappeared, all valid arguments, all of it probably played some sort of role in it. But the reality is that those are the numbers. And to me, again, we're looking at offense and defense. Both are in the bottom third of the league. Well, why is your defense there? And this goes to what Joe was talking about too with the penalty kill. They overlap. Well, maybe not so much because, again, we talked about this throughout the season. They refused to play, and it drove me nuts. And this goes to your point about direction, Joe. They refused to play rookies on the PK. It was always Murphy, always Keith, Sidorov, and maybe one of the other guys to get a minute on the PK a game. That's not enough. That's not enough. We were told we were going to be developing young players and giving them an opportunity to play. That didn't happen on the penalty kill. And then we get to the power play, which did fairly well. But again, if Adam Boquist was healthy, that's the only person we saw in the power play. We didn't see Bodan. We didn't see Mitchell. Didn't see Kalanick until, Boquist went out. And, it's like, what are we doing here? And then Calvin DeHaan had horrible games, wasn't scratched. Adam Boquist, especially early on in the season, horrible games, didn't get scratched. Look how long it took Kalanick to play. He didn't play his first game, I think, until it was March 2nd. And not only in the NHL, but they didn't even send him to. Remember, Joe? They refused to send him to Rockford. They didn't send him.
Yeah, well, he was on the taxi squad, I think, for quite a while.
Yeah, they didn't even send him. I think he in the middle of February is when he finally went to Rockford, and he just lit it up. And then they're like, all right, well, I guess we got to play him. They played him. I think it was March 2nd against Tampa. He didn't look very good because, again, you're playing, hey, kid, you're playing the defending champions. And then he, had another like 2 or 3 weeks off, something like that. And then he came back and he's played every game, and he's arguably been their second best defenseman and probably has a permanent role going into next season. But again, he sat in the stands for 2 months. Like, I thought we were playing young players. And not only that, but we were going to hold them accountable. See Adam Boquist making stupid plays. I know he's everyone's darling, but huh? And, again, as Joe said, the direction. What are we doing? I talked about this on last night's show that Erica had brought up, a follower of ours. You can follow her on Twitter. I believe it's Sane BSB fan, which I think stands for Backstreet Boys. She can correct me if that's wrong, but I think that's what it means. But she had brought up that she thinks next season this team is going to be even younger than it was this year. And I said, I guess I agree with her that I hope she's right. Because I even said this, I think the last time Joe was with me on here, that it seems that, like I've just been talking about, they're talking a big game and they're throwing all these rookie stats out and stuff, but they're like, it's like half-hearted, or maybe half-ass isn't the right way to put it, but like half-hearted. Like, yes, we've played all these kids, and yes, they've all scored their first goal, which is great. Congratulations to all of them. But other than, like Hagel and a lot of the forwards have gotten, I think, by necessity, more opportunity than the defenders have. And, your defense, I think it takes the longest to develop usually, and you're not giving them that opportunity. Calvin DeHaan has no future on this team. He doesn't, whether he's picked in the draft or not. After next season, if he's not picked, he won't be here. Same thing goes with Zadorov. I mentioned Joe on the show last night, and I have with you. They've got like 10 B plus defensive prospects that are either signed or coming into the system in the next year or two. And that leads me back into the Alex Nylander trade. I've seen people tonight. Oh, get rid of Nylander. We don't want Nylander back. Excuse me, what? Why? He's a young player. I even said to the person, or replied to them, I'm like, Kirby Doc's done the exact same stats in the same amount of games, basically verbatim, that Nylander has. Yes, Nylander's been around longer, but he hasn't been given the opportunity, or wasn't, that Doc was.
Well, right. And I know we talked about that, next year is really a, make or break year for Nylander.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't even, I guess that's even, I guess I agree it's make or break, but I would say it's make or break with tempered expectations, because again, you're talking about a player that's played 84 games in the NHL and is coming off knee surgery. So might not be the greatest, coming out of the gate next year. And I don't think we should write him off if he starts out slow. I think next year's big for Doc, but I don't think it's make or break. It is make or break for me for Boquist, because it'll be his third season. I have not seen enough from him offensively or defensively, but maybe you can overlook the defensive side of things if he produces offensively. I haven't even seen enough there. He put up a lot of points for like a brief period and then disappeared again. So we'll see what happens with him. But again, maybe the theme of this episode is the direction of the team. What are we doing? Because as Joe and I talked in previous episodes and then before coming in tonight, what are we doing with all these players? I mean, I assume they're going to bring Vinnie Hinostroza back. I can't imagine any scenario that doesn't happen. I can't really imagine that Suter's not brought back. They just traded for Adam Gaudette. I don't think they've seen enough of him to let him go unless he's picked in the draft. Clearly, Dylan Strome's fallen out of favor. It appears Taves and Nylander will be back. And it appears Borgstrom will be signing a contract. He was the big piece in that trade with Florida. And then we've been hearing all these musings about Max Shalunoff and this Demir Zarev or whatever the hell his name is. Who knows what's going on there? It's long speculated that last year's first round pick Lucas Reichel will be signed as well. So you're adding and adding and adding, and this is why I say I was just looking at the lineup tonight, trying to figure out where everybody. Screw lines, don't worry about lines. Just figure out where people fit. Right? We had 7 defenders tonight, so take away one of them, you get an extra forward. Assume that's Taves. Doc is going to be back, and Nylander. That's 2 people. So assuming you take Entwistle out and you take Kurashev out. Hardman is still in the lineup. That's somebody that you could potentially take out, but I don't know if you want to. That's another body, like I said, that they brought in as a college free agent. He's put up 4 points in 9 games, and he's got size. They're talking about needing size. Well, he's 6'2". You got Josiah Slavin, who you just signed, who's 6'3". He put up 6 points in 12 games in Rockford. And, you know, what I just said, we've made room for Taves, Nylander, and Doc. We don't have room for Borgstrom yet. If we take Hardman out, I guess we can get Borgstrom in there. Well, then what about Reichel, our first round pick from last year? Are we going to send him straight to Rockford? I guess.
I would think he starts there. That's just, to get him again. Usually with these European players, they usually start in Rockford. I would think, just to get them used to the North American style of play and the ice and all that.
Right. Okay. So then Dylan Strome would still be in the lineup because I took out Khrushchev, I took out Entwistle, and I took out Hardman. So that would be, and obviously the extra defender. So that's 4 spots. So that's Nylander, Doc, Taves, and Borgstrom. And again, who knows what we're doing with the Russians? Let's just assume we're not bringing them over. If Reichel's brought over, he goes to Rockford. That's cool, but we've still got Brett Connolly signed. We've still got Ryan Carpenter signed. Like, you're not getting rid of Connolly, so you might as well just plan on being stuck with him. Can you try or trade? Jesus, I'm getting tired. Can you trade Carpenter, and what can you get for him? I mean, maybe a 4th or 5th round pick. I mean, I know he ain't gonna want to sit on the bench all year. So, I mean, and like I said, they've got Gaudette on top of that. And all these guys they've brought in. I don't know where everybody's going to fit. And I guess maybe these are sort of good problems to have, but at the same token, we don't know what Nylander's going to do. We don't know what Borgstrom's going to do. We're hoping Hagel has another season like this. We don't know if he will. Same thing with Hinostroza. Hinostroza's on pace since he was acquired to do like 60 points. I think the best Hinostroza's ever done is like 40. And that was one season in Arizona. So that's pretty significant for him at his age. So, that's another kind of show me if this is legit or not. And that's why I say, I mean, I talked last night about it and I talked to Joe about it before we jumped on. Usually, where you're at, where the Hawks are in a rebuilding team, you want to bring in some vets that you can trade out at the deadline for assets. I don't see how they do that. Do you?
Yeah, it would be. I mean, it's going to be tough either way, but like you said, if you can get like a Matthias Janmark type player, for example, and then if that player has obviously a good year and the Hawks aren't in it come the deadline, as we talked about, Kyle, the 2022 draft having a lot of talent, to at least try to get as many picks as you can for that draft. But I don't know how they can make it happen though.
Well, that's just it. And like, I mean, Bowman is going to have to make moves this offseason. Almost similar to the offseason from 2 seasons ago where he went crazy, right? So he brought in Shaw, he brought in Leonard, he brought in Dahan, he brought in Mata, Carpenter, Smith, right? He brought in all these guys. He's going to have an off season like that again. But the problem is he can't really take on other people, right? Like, unless they're a raw prospect or a prospect that's still like in college or something. Because again, Gaudette, Connolly, Carpenter, those are 3 vets that you really don't have a spot for in the lineup. Hardman, you're wanting to play. He's played excellent in this limited amount this year. Slavin, you're going to want to see at some point, just based off age, for one thing. I would assume eventually you're going to, even if Reichel starts in Rockford, you're probably going to want to see him in the show at some point. And then all of the, like I said, all the guys that are returning that are healthy, And maybe you want to bring Khrushchev back up from Rockford to see what he can do, or an Entwistle or whatever. And that's just, again, that's just forwards. Obviously, we've talked about all season about the cluster shit show that the defense is, with how many people they've got there. So, again, to Joe's point, I think it would really behoove them to, whenever they have their end of the year press conference again, they need Jeremy Colleton to step up. It has to be more than Stan Bowman. Stan Bowman can say, well, we're going younger and we were really happy with the season. A lot of guys made progress. Yeah, we know all that. People are not dumb. Like, we don't need you to tell us that. We understand. We want to know what your goal is. What is the goal for next season, other than those players to continue to develop? You have to have some goal. Like, how far out are we from being a contender again? Like, they've asked him repeatedly all year about the trade deadline, and he constantly said, well, we're not really in a position to really sell assets like we were several years ago, blah 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 blah. Cool. What's the target date for us to be there again? That's I think, do you think that would help fans out, Joe? Like, if they said by 2023, that's when we're going to be competing again. Like, if they put a date on it.
Yeah, and I do. I mean, just because then fans will kind of have the expectation. Okay, well, at least now we know where we expect to enter. Our competitive window to open again. So at this point, that way maybe the fans won't have as lofty of expectations. But maybe it's more of along the lines of Bowman doesn't want to come out and say it because then they're afraid that ticket sales will decline, and people are going to say, well, screw it, we're not going to games because they're not going to be a good team. So it's a catch-22. But I mean, at least to be part honest with the fans, to say, yeah, hey, we got this thing going, the wheels are starting to turn, just bear with us for maybe another season or two, and then you're going to really start to see the results, and we're going to go out and we're going to have money to spend and this and that. So, but you got to try to entice them to say, okay, well, hey, what do we have to look forward to if we stick around?
Well, and I think that's what I would do. I mean, we've talked about it. 2 years from now, that's when they're going to have all their cap space. Keith's contract is up, DeBrincat's contract is up, Taves' contract is up, and Kane's contract is up. That's literally half their salary cap. Between those, you're talking like $40 million. And you're already going to have DeHaan gone. You're going to have Shaw gone. That's $7 million on top of that. Kubalik, if he's gone, that's another 4. Strome, if Strome's gone, that's another 3.5 or 3, I guess. So, you're talking like over the next 2 years, there's like $50 million that are coming off the books. So, again, if you're focusing on development and bringing in assets like young players through the drafts, especially next year, and then you're going to have all that money to play with, and you can decide, hey, we want to bring Keith back at $1 million or $1.5 million. We want to bring Kane back for more money. We want to keep Johnny, if he wants to come back, and we'll pay him a little bit less, because reality is he's lost the whole season here. Plus he's getting a little older, and we want to keep, the band back together. We can give DeBrincat more money. And now we've got 6 or 7 million, maybe more, depending on what we do with Kubalik and Strome, to go out and get that final Marian Hossa piece that we did 10 years ago. Like that's where they could be in 2 years. And then on top of that, you got your Kirby Docks, you got the defense developed, you've got whoever the hell we draft this year and whoever the hell we would draft next year. So those are, we're talking potentially, folks, here. We're talking 3 first-round picks that could be in your top 6 over the next 3 years, depending on how stuff, or 2 years, excuse me, depending on how stuff goes. If you're in the top 10 in 2022, I think that pick is probably starting in the NHL. I don't think this year's pick will be. I think they're another year away. But again, Reichel could be here this season. He was last year's first rounder. So all of that's here, and Nylander and all of it. So, I mean, it's there. There's reason for optimism. But again, I think it would behoove them to put a date on it and be like more specific about what they're doing. Because it still feels like, again, oh, well, we need this, we need that, and it's like, that's not what rebuilding teams do. Rebuilding teams that are in year 2 of a rebuild are not going, we need a number 1 defender. What? That's mixed signals. Or, we're going to go, we've got $7 million. We're going to go blow it on a winger. Thought we were rebuilding. And I don't, like, considering the people that are available this year, I don't really want to blow $7 million on them. So, again, reason for optimism. This was a good season by all accounts, except for Boquist, I think, and Strome, obviously. Let's focus on Strome. Do you think Strome gets traded?
At this point, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know. If DeBrincat and him are seem to be, have so much chemistry, but it's like I don't know. Do you try to keep them on a line next year to maybe help reignite Strome a little bit more so than obviously DeBrincat?
I mean, I'd have to look at the players again to see what if I, I know I want Hagel and Hinostroza together. So that's, one of your lines because they're both wingers. And you've got, I'm assuming Borgstrom coming over. And I just assume, and maybe it's a competition, but I would still assume based off his pedigree and what they're going to promise him to get him to come over here. Because again, Borgstrom's already been in the NHL, everybody. And it didn't work out with Florida. And he was stuck in the bottom 6. I can't imagine he's going to want to come over here to be stuck in the bottom 6 again. He's going to want to play in the top 6 or at least get the opportunity to. So I would imagine he's going to start as your second line center. And Doc, again, missing almost the whole season other than 20 games this year, probably would do him good to be on the third line again. And I think he would play well with Hagel and Hinostroza. So if Borgstrom's your second line center, who's his wingers? Like, if we're gonna keep DeBrincat and Strome together, so let's say, would you rather have DeBrincat and Strome with Taves, or would you rather have them with Borgstrom?
I mean, probably Taves, but I don't, then
because that's just it, right? If you don't put them with Taves, that means now Kane is with Taves.
Well, and I know we're trying to reunite Kubalik with Taves, but
so your first line would be Kubalik, Kane, and Taves. If you had DeBrincat and Strome together with whether it be Borgstrom or Doc, but I think at least to start it would be Borgstrom. I don't know. I don't know if I like Kane with Kubalik. Granted, the Kane and Panarin thing worked. And obviously you had all those one-time shots, worked with DeBrincat too, but Kubalik I don't think is as mobile as DeBrincat or Panarin. So I don't know. And we don't know what's been plaguing Taves. Do you really want him in that banger role in the middle between those two offensive guys? Like, I guess Taves and Kubalik kind of worked because Kubalik is a straight finisher and Taves is more playmaker. So that kind of worked. And then Saad was there to kind of work the boards, because I think that was the original line, I believe. So then that's not really a role for Kane, right? You want Kane kind of dictating the offense. So I don't know. That's what I said. Like it's so they've got so many decisions to make, and then again, if Nylander's back, that bumps Nylander to the fourth line, and I don't. Basically, somebody's got to get traded.
Well, right.
Like either because you don't want Nylander on the fourth line because that's just stunting his growth, I think. So either you're trading Kubalik, you're trading Strome, or you're trading Nylander. I think one of those three gets moved. And it's probably not Nylander because I don't think he has any trade value. He has value to Seattle because if he was exposed in the expansion draft, they get him for nothing, right? But I don't see anybody else going, yeah, I'm going to give you an asset for Nylander unless you include him in a bigger deal. So then it becomes Kubalik or Strome. Who are you moving? And while I would probably move Kubalik, I think they probably move Strome. That's where my gut would be.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that? Or
Yeah. I mean, because like I said, Kubalik just, I think they feel like if they reignite, if Teves comes back and they're both reunited, that can, kind of spark Kubalik to get back to putting the puck in the back of the net on a more consistent basis, like he was. And I mean, DeBrincat put up, the amazing numbers without Strome being on his side for most of the year. So I think that's probably the way that they're looking at it. Like we can afford to not have Strome on this team, whereas Kubalik, I think, kind of they'll feel is still a pretty valuable asset to have.
or do you think they'd be okay with putting Strome on the fourth line?
I don't think so, just because Strome he's not a fourth line guy. I mean, he's a second or a third.
Yeah,
So
the same thing with Nylander, right? So
right,
that's the problem. If you now again, if they don't bring Hinostroza back, that solves the problem
right,
because then you can plug Strome into the third line. But if you bring Hinostroza back, then you've got to move somebody. And again, I don't think you can get anything from Nylander that to me would be like you're better off keeping him than trading him for nothing, or letting him go to Seattle. Because I'm sure if he's exposed, Seattle will take him, considering what else would be exposed. If you offered me Alex Nylander or David Camp, I'm taking Alex Nylander. Or Alex Nylander, Brett Connolly, I'm taking Nylander. Like, or Nylander or Carpenter. Like, again, I think that's why I don't think you can expose Nylander because I think he's far and away your best, intriguing prospect. And they need to get rid of DeHaan, right? So I don't know. It will be interesting. There are definitely trades coming. There have to be because there's too many pieces right now and it does you can't make a puzzle with all of these pieces. It's like we've taken, I don't know, Joe, if you've ever been in a hospital or like a somewhere that had a waiting room that had a puzzle or something, and some kid screwed something up, so you got puzzle pieces that go to another puzzle and you're sitting there trying to make it work and it doesn't work. That's kind of what this team feels like right now. It doesn't fit together right, because you got too many pieces on the table. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the roster. I think that'll end what we're talking about with the roster. Leading into the future, now that the season is over, What do you think they do at the draft? Do you think they trade back? I know we've talked about them potentially doing that.
I think it all depends on, if they're targeting a specific player, do they feel like if they, all right, well, he's not going to be there when maybe, or if they feel like he's going to be there in the later rounds, then yeah, maybe you could trade back a little bit to get yourself a little bit more draft capital. But that all depends on the type of player that they're going to try to target and who they want to bring in.
Well, and I think that brings up another interesting point is what are the other teams going to, does it become one of those things where it's like teams are just like, fuck it, we're not going to even bother with making trades. We're just going to wing it and assume like if, like, for example, say stands, say the Hawks have the 12th pick and the 10th pick is on the clock and you're starting to get ready to, be up on the clock. And you're sitting there with your scouting staff and you're sitting there, it's like, well, our board is not what we thought it was going to be, in the sense that players that were thought to be in the top 10 picks were not taken. Is there somebody in those top 10 that we want? And if not, that probably means whoever we had our eye on is going to fall. So do we try to trade back or do we just take the player and not even, worry about it? Because I think that might be something too that other teams do, because of the scouting was just such a shit show this year that they just, if the player they want's there in their spot, they're taking him. Not going to be worried about trading back or anything, because that just adds to the issue, right? Like, you haven't seen a lot of these players. So even if you're getting draft capital in the later rounds by moving back, are you really benefiting that much when you haven't really seen these players? So that's, unless you're like it would take two teams, I think, one that really wants somebody that's, trading up, and then the Hawks that really want two players, kind of a thing, where they want to get this guy and then that guy because we're going to add draft capital. That said, what do you think they draft? I think we agree it won't be a defenseman because there
No, it's
aren't.
got to be a forward. It's got to be either, a winger. I would say it's got to be a winger. And you'd like to see somebody that has the potential to be at least maybe a 20 goal scorer, but I don't know.
Well, I know we talked about it before, but so there's a round where the Hawks are picking, just like last year with Askarov. This year there is Jesper Waldstad, who is a goalie. And you don't think, you told me before, there's any chance that they take him if he's there at 11. Let's say they're picking 11th or 12th.
Are you talking a goaltender?
Yeah, like that would be Waldstad, I believe is his name, Jesper Waldstad.
Yeah, and I don't think you can, just because you already took Comesso. So
Yeah, and I mean, and you got Lankinen too, right? And I mean, Comesso is probably 2-3 years away, right? So, I mean, because even when they come over, guys, like, goalies usually play a year or two in the AHL. So again, you're talking, he's played a year of college now. So if he plays next year, it's a sophomore year. Then if they sign him, that's 2 more years in Rockford. That's 4 years from now for Comesso. So he's still really not close. But I mean, because Lankinen will be if Lankinen's still here, he'll be in his 30s by that point. So you'll probably be kind of on the lookout for something to come in to potentially replace him. But I don't know, because look at what Florida and look at what Nashville did. So Nashville took Askarov, and they've got Rene, who's probably gone at the end of this year. And I believe he shut out Carolina tonight. So
Then do you think Saros moves to 1 for them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, they got Askarov. So, and I mean, Saros is probably really the reason they are where they are. And, because I think it was it Dom from The Athletic that said they're paying Matt Duchene $8 million, I think, a season, and he put up 11 points this year. Like, Nashville is not a good team. They're not. They should not have been where they are. I think they got lucky in a lot of senses, mainly because the Hawks just couldn't fucking beat them. That's mainly why they're in the playoffs. Other than that, Saros was just amazing. But moving on from them, because like I said, they've got Askarov, so they'll have decisions to make there. But look at Florida. They've got Spencer Knight, and they went and he looks like a star. And they went and brought in Sergei Bobrovsky. And what Bobrovsky's still got 5 years after this at like $10 million or whatever it is. I don't know what the hell they're going to do. Because it already.
They might trade him.
Well, who the hell wants Bobrovsky at like 8 or 10?
No, not. But they might. Maybe they trade Spencer Knight.
Can you? Do you trade a young franchise goalie?
But if you, like I said, if you're looking at a win now mode and you've got Bobrovsky for the next 5 years, what do you need Spencer Knight for?
I mean, I guess let me look at. So, yeah, Bob is getting $10 million a year, and he's got 5 years after this because they gave him 7.
In which the Panthers are in a competitive window at this point. So I would think if
I mean,
Spencer,
I guess you got a 1A, 1B, right, for the next 3 years at least. I mean, so that'll eat up, like I said, Bob's got 5 years left. But I guess it depends on how much you give Spencer Knight, like how many starts you give him. Because I guess if you can keep him at like $2 or $3 million on his next contract, or even maybe $4 million, maybe you could make it work. But I don't know. But that's what I mean. So, like, they've got these goalie competitions that are looming because they drafted. I mean, and I think Askarov is probably not the same thing as Comesso, right? Where Comesso is going to take 4 years. Askarov is probably like a year from coming in, maybe even less. He might be here next year. I don't know. I don't know what their plans are. It definitely seems like Rene is retiring, or at the very least returning home to Europe. But I don't know. If you listen to everybody online, Kevin Lankinen's not a number 1 goalie. I don't know how they figure that, but that's what they all think. I don't agree with that. Everyone's saying, well, he's a 1B. What the hell is a 1B? If there's a 1 there, that means they're a number 1. Like, did that term get like misconstrued at some point? Like, you're trying to say he's like a really good backup? Huh? Like, I don't get it. I don't know what their thinking is there. And like, well, they need to go out and get a goalie. Whether it's, I guess I guess it would have to be through free agency, right? Because even if they get this kid in this year's draft, again, probably 2 years away. Who the hell knows what happens in 2 years? So I don't know. I agree with you. I think they take a forward. I think a name to watch is Fabian Liesel. He is a Swedish player, playmaker, fast, his speed. Um, I think they need a goal scorer though more than they need another playmaker. But the problem is this draft is weak to begin with, and they haven't really seen anybody. So there's Chaz Lucius is another guy. Cole Sillinger's a guy. Um, Johnson out at Michigan's another guy, the center who could fall. I don't know. Nobody knows, but I think we both agree, Joe, they're probably going to take a forward, and I think we probably just hope that
Right.
whoever they get's decent and good, and that next year is when they hit, right? Like if they get a top 10 pick or close to a top 10 pick, and maybe even a second pick. I know we've talked about them trying to get 2 picks in next year's first round. So let me ask you that then. Kind of a final question. If the Hawks are out of the playoffs at the deadline next year, are you willing to move Kubalik for a first round pick?
That all depends on if Kubalik is worth I don't know how his production is going to be next year. But
Well, let's say somebody will give. I'm saying somebody will give you a first round pick. Will you move him? His contract's up, and let's say he's doing exactly. Let's say he's mimicking this season, so that would put him on pace. He at the trade deadline, he'd have about 35, 40 points, and he'd be on pace for about a 50-point season, maybe a little bit over that.
And so is he under contract, or his
contract ends after next season?
So he'd basically be a rental.
Yes and no. So he'll be a restricted free agent at the end of the deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think if a team feels confident that they can sign him,
I think. Let me just to make sure I'm not saying bullshit. Let me just make sure that's accurate. Yes. So he's making $3.7 million. He'll be 27 years old at the end of this contract, and he's a restricted free agent. He's going to want to get paid. So are you willing to take the $3.5 million from Smith and the $4 million from Shaw to give Kubalik, say, $7.5 million for a 50-point-a-year player? Let's say 50-point-a-year player, 30 goal scorer.
Well, I mean, we're talking about the Hawks need guys to put the puck in the back of the net, right? But I don't know. I think it just, if we can get a first round pick, yeah. I mean, anything less than that, no.
So. Yeah, I think it would have to be a first round pick.
So,
and something to consider in that too. Doc would be up the same year. So Doc's contract is up the same year Kubalik is. So is Boquist. You're going to have to pay Lankinen after this coming season. So that's going to eat up into your space a little bit. Like I said, you'll have money because assuming Zadorov and DeHaan are gone, that's about $8 million. But again, Kalynuk will have to be re-signed too. So Kalynuk, the contracts coming up in the next couple of years that are important that you want to bring people back on before the big year, right? Which is when Kane and Taves are up, is Doc, Kubalik, Kalynuk, and Lankinen, and Hagel. Hagel's this year. So, figuratively speaking, Doc's probably going to make 3 million, maybe kind of what Strome's making.
Mm-hmm.
And then Boquist, if he's here, probably about that. Kalanick probably around that too. And then Lankinen, if he's your number one goalie, I think he's probably at 4. So that's a $3 million increase there. I mean, so again, I don't know if you have the money to keep Kubalik. That's the thing. That's why I'm thinking if you can get a first round pick for him in that loaded draft, I think you almost have to do it if you're out of the playoffs. Plus, like I said, he'll be 27 years old. So he's, if you're giving him a long-term deal, he's going to eventually be on the wrong side of 30 at the end of it. So anyway, we'll see. Lots to happen. Lots to see what happens. Again, that will wrap up this game review as well as the season. Our 2020-21 Chicago Blackhawks season is over. And the Hawks, what did we finish at? What was our record?
24, 25, and 7.
Yeah, that's right, because we lost an OT tonight. So finish a game under 500. If you want real 500, I guess we're 8 under. That's kind of ugly when you think about it. But yeah, like me and Joe said, great season all in all. Improvement. Nobody, I think, saw this coming. Gotta like what we saw for the most part, especially Alex DeBrincat. What a story that was. Lankinen. I mean, I guess Joe, like who is your biggest bright spots this year?
No question. It was DeBrincat. Lankinen showed some really good growth spurts there. Who else? Kalanick, when he got in, played for the most part pretty well.
Hagel.
Yeah, definitely Brandon Hagel. So I'd have to say if there was a Hawks MVP this year, no question, it's Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah, I agree with you. And which that's I think that's important because everybody was talking about Patrick Kane for the Hart Trophy, and I mean Patrick Kane the last 10 games is kind of, I mean, he's gotten his points, but Joe had brought it up. I think he finished with 15 goals this year. That's really low for him. And granted, 56 game season probably would be higher in a normal 82, but Kane really kind of fell off a little bit here towards the end. And again, obviously, new father, and then COVID and the restrictions and all of that. And obviously, we don't need to get into it, but we all know, thanks to Pat Foley tonight, just how heart breaking the COVID restrictions were traveling this year. So I guess maybe you can chalk that up also to him being kind of tired, but I definitely agree. I think if I said last night, and I'll say it again, I think if Alex DeBrincat continues on this path, he's not right now. So let's just make that clear. But if he follows this season up with another one like this next year, then I think you can definitely put him in the category of a top 10 player in the league. He isn't right now, but if he replicates this, then I think he's there because he's playing two-way hockey, PK, power play on pay. I mean, dude, 50 goals, on pace for over 50 goals. It's insane. And this is a guy that was taken 10 picks into the second round because nobody wanted him because of his size. I mean, what a story he is. So, again, hopefully he continues to play like this. Huge bright spot. But Yeah, with that, everybody, that'll wrap it up. Just kind of some house cleaning notes. um, we will be doing, I know we said, or I said that we were going to be doing kind of one off episodes uh, called Splinters, and I said we were going to be doing them this year. We obviously didn't get around to that. Um, but I think we're going to do that in the off season. I can't tell you how often or what they will be. One of them for sure will be the draft and the reaction to the draft. Other than that, maybe we'll do something for free agency depending on what the Hawks do. Maybe we'll do a spur of the moment thing if there's a huge trade or something to that effect that we'll do. But so while we're in the off season, there will be some stuff, but not a lot. And then again, as I mentioned on last night show, don't be alarmed, but soon I'm going to be adding movie content to the channel as well as hot toy content, just to bring this channel. Obviously, it's called Killer Podcast. We're going to have Blackhawks content. We're going to have movie content, and we're really going to be bringing a lot of sports and entertainment content to the channel. And it's important that we have that, obviously, for one reason. Blackhawks only play, 6, 7 months out of the year, depending on if they make the playoffs or not. So we got to have content for more than just half of a year to make this thing work. So I know some people get up in arms when they see other stuff that's not Blackhawks related or specific to whatever they subscribe for. So hopefully you're understanding of that. But with that, everybody, again, I know I appreciate this. I'm sure Joe does. All of the support you guys gave us this season, from listening to liking to commenting on our stuff to subscribing to the channel. It's, again, the first year we've done this. We're going to hopefully continue to build off this and to continue to grow. And I just want to thank everybody for, tuning in and listening. It's been kind of a chore at times doing this, but also I think kind of fun. So, looking forward to the future. And I want to thank Joe again for coming on and being here throughout most of the season as well. I know.
Yeah, no, I want to thank everybody too, and thanks Kyle, I for having me on and doing this for a good portion of the year. And it was, like I said, my first kind of dabble into this, and without, like I said, the fans and the interactions that we have, it's not really possible or worth it to do this. So um again, yeah, thank you to all the listeners and the commenters and everybody. And like I said, we welcome your feedback, both positive and negative. So hopefully, as the years go on, we get more and more of you to jump on and offer your thoughts and what we think needs to happen to have the Hawks be a cup contender again. And hopefully it'll get there sooner or later. But yeah, again, thank you, mostly Kyle, for having me on and doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And again, thank you for jumping on. I mean, look, it, I think I don't know if, I don't even remember how it started, Joe. I don't know if I commented on your post or if you commented on mine, and then we kind of DM'd, and, it's just something simple like that. And that's how this, worked. And then we've done, every show for the most part, give or take, probably, I mean, what, I think Joe missed maybe 7 or 8 games the whole year. So basically the whole year. And, if any of you want to jump on, please just send us a DM. We'll be more than happy to get you on here. Again, one of the things we're looking into doing is to get us up and running with video. I think that will help us grow pretty exponentially. I think we're kind of limited right now for people, especially on YouTube, um, being an audio only show. But again, that all takes money. Um, I spent quite a little bit of money here a couple months ago on upgrading the mic. that I'm using, as well as the mixer and all of that good stuff. Cameras are on their way. So hopefully by the fall, maybe we can get that going. Maybe not. We'll see. But definitely looking for more interaction and more people to jump on with me and Joe as we move forward going into next year. So again, if you want to just shoot the podcast a DM, shoot Joe a DM. I know, like I said a while back, I need a break from like social media, so I locked up my stuff and I just, for work purposes and all of that stuff. So um, I kind of want to limit my social media to kind of just this from now on. So um, again, if you DM the podcast account, you'll probably be talking to me anyway. So yeah, whether you want to DM Joe and then Joe can get a hold of me, or DM the podcast channel, or I guess Twitter handle, do that. And with that, I should probably mention that you can find Joe on Twitter at Chai Sports Fan Joe. And you can find our show at Riding the Pine 21 if you've just happened to come across our video here on YouTube. Uh, we live tweet every game. Both of us do. So give us, the channel a follow and give Joe a follow. And yeah, we look forward to talking Blackhawks hockey with you into the future. Again, thanks for hanging in there with us during this COVID shortened season. It's been a crazy year. Hopefully, the next time that we talk to you about a game review, it's a Blackhawks victory at the Madhouse on Madison with 20,000 Blackhawks fans in attendance. We can hope, right? So, with that, again, one last time, thank you. And we will talk to you all soon. But until then, let's go Hawks.
Go Hawks, everybody. Yeah, thanks again. And hopefully next season we're talking about a playoff appearance.
All right. Good night, everybody.